Welcome back to the Tale of the Tape here on Boxing Legends TV. Today we have a monster shootout between two unbeaten but relatively unproven heavyweights at the top of their game.
When are you ready?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
All right, say by the phone, baby.
For those of you that don't know, this is a heavyweight title fight for Wilder's WBC strap, the most prestigious belt across all the weight divisions.
I'm about to put on this boy.
The new WBC heavyweight champion of the world, the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder.
It should be a great one to break down, but before we do, we'd advise anyone who knows a thing or two about art and graphic design to hang around to the end to get a rare paid opportunity to do some work for us on this channel. Without any further ado, let's take a look at the stats.
Anti-clockwise the way my wrist turns. Gee, I whip until my wrist burns. Had to put it on freeze, nigga, hella ice. Pinky ring, yellow eyes, shines like the weather's nice.
WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder will enter the ring with a record of 39 wins, 38 knockouts, and 0 defeats. Deontay was born and raised in Alabama, USA, and is currently 32 years old. Wilder stands at a massive 6'7", or 201 centimeters to be precise, and has one of the longest reaches in boxing today at 83 inches. Deontay fights in the orthodox stance, although some of his moves are anything but that. Wilder's standout stats from his performance card are his power at 95, which is the highest in the world today for obvious reasons, his speed at 83, stamina at 84, and chin at 82. There are still question marks around that chin, but despite having a weak defense, it has held up so far. We've changed the heart stat to ring IQ because quite simply 99% of boxers have to have a decent heart to make it to this top level anyways. Wilder's ring IQ isn't the best, but when you tie that in with high punching power, you're often left with a dangerous, unorthodox wrecking ball. Challenger Luis King Kong Ortiz will enter the ring with an unbeaten record of 28-0 with 24 knockouts. He was born in Camagüey, Cuba, and is currently 38 years old. Ortiz stands at 6'4" and surprisingly has an even longer reach than Wilder at 84 inches. Ortiz, like so many other great Cubans before him, fights out of the southpaw stance, which should make for interesting viewing to see how Wilder deals with it. Ortiz has a perfectly balanced card with all stats ranging from 80 to 90. With no real noticeable flaws, his standout stat is his power, defense, and IQ, which is probably the most honed amongst all heavyweights today due to a long and prosperous amateur career with the Cuban national team. Ortiz also has a fairly untested chin in the pros, but I can guarantee you it's about to be tested to its highest order on Saturday. If you're watching this video today, I'm guessing by now most of you know Deontay Wilder's story, so I thought it'd be cool to spend a bit more time on the challenger's rise to fame.
When my daughter was born, they found a sickness, and it was something that was very bad, and she was born with a necrosis in one of her fingers, and the doctors wanted to amputate the finger, and I was crazy. I told my wife that if they were going to cut her finger, that they should take mine also. I wanted them to amputate my finger so that when she was born, she can say, I was born just like my daddy.
It's quite refreshing to go back and watch a 20-year-old Luis Ortiz learning his trade in the amateur ranks. He was a fantastic point scorer, great body puncher, and had an extremely high work rate that never failed him once.
Победу одержал Luis Ortiz Alarcón, Cuba.
It's probably no surprise that he finished his amateur career with a record of 349-19, and even despite that, he was never viewed as the #1 Cuban competitor, and that's down to the nation having so many top fighters.
Something manic about these final minute or so.
The Cruz's reflexes I've never seen anything like it on a boxer. The reflexes are unbelievable.
For me, and so many others, Cuba is the greatest amateur boxing nation of all time. They have simply dominated the Olympics and World Championships for generations.
Of one of the greatest amateur programs in the history of sports, dare I say, if not boxing, but assuredly boxing.
Munich, 1972, was the year we first saw the Cubans rise with heavyweight legend Teofilo Stevenson, winning the first gold medal for the Cuban boxing team in their history, but he wasn't finished yet. 4 years later, he was back winning another gold in Montreal, and 4 years after that, taking the gold home at the 1980 Moscow Games. In doing so, he became one of only 3 men to win gold medals at 3 different games, including Laszlo Papp and fellow Cuban star Felix Savon, who is also another Cuban marvel, winning the most world championship medals at a staggering 7. Amazing.
I've seen a lot of fighters beaten before they get into the ring against the Cubans, knowing that they're up against the best boxer in the world.
But what was it that made them so great? Well, every gold medalist trained at the same gym, the Rafael Trejo Gym in Havana. It's here where the unorthodox techniques are taught. It's all about hand-eye coordination. It often comes across as dancing in some ways, but the ultimate goal is to hit and not be hit.
Los giros, todo eso va también en el baile. Si te pones a mirar, viene incluido también con un baile. Lo único que se le agregan unos hoppos.
If you would like to see Cuban boxing at its best, I would advise watching Guillermo Rigondeaux as a young man in the amateurs. For me, he is not just the best Cuban boxer, but the best boxer I've ever seen competing as an amateur.
Precious little respect, but again, Rigondeaux's footwork is fantastic.
During the 50s, Cuba saw a rise of champions in the professional ranks. Benny Parrott, Kid Chocolate, and the masterful Kid Gavilan, amongst others. Unfortunately, in 1961, due to a revolutionary government, professional boxing was banned in Cuba and they could only compete in the amateurs, which quickly saw a rise in defectors looking to earn a top living abroad.
But on the global boxing grapevine, rumours abound that the family of any boxer who defects pays a heavy price back in Cuba.
As great as some of these guys were as amateurs, their journeys as pro often turned into what-if stories. From Adlani Solis to Guillermo Rigondeaux, from Mike Perez to Yuriorkis Gamboa, they all have one thing in common: huge disappointments as a pro. And this is where Luis Ortiz fits in this whole picture. Will he follow the damned route of the Cuban professional legacy, or can he spark a new wave of dedicated boxers from Cuba?
Even more to obtain my dream, which is to be a world champion.
As a pro so far, Ortiz has looked dynamite for his age. He splattered every boxer in front of him and quickly found himself on U.S. national TV.
That's the real King Kong.
The real King Kong.
He beat some notable names like Burt Cooper, Monty Barrett, and Latif Coyote before his first major setback happened.
And again, another right that drops Coyote. And he caught him reaching again, but Coyote made the same mistake twice.
After wiping out Latif Coyote in August 2014, Ortiz was given a 9-month suspension for taking the banned substance nandrolone before the fight. Of course, first-time offenders are often given similar punishments, and Ortiz was soon back in the ring doing what he does best.
Luis Ortiz just looked at his emotion aside. I told you it wouldn't go around.
This fight away.
I mean,
Redondo stays up after bouncing off the ropes and goes down on the rebound.
He joined the HBO network in 2015 and started showing off his incredible counterpunching skills. He beat 3 top 10 opponents back-to-back in Bryant Jennings, Tony Thompson, and Malik Scott, and quickly put himself in the firing line for Deontay Wilder's WBC belt.
Okay, let's do it. He said, let's do it. Hey, make sure you train hard, because I'm coming to whoop your ass, I promise.
Motherfucker, you bitch.
Deontay Wilder's rise to the top was one of an underdog with minimal experience, getting by with his crushing punching power and low-tier opposition. It's a story I've told many times in the past, so just check back through the videos if you want to know more about it.
The knockouts, baby. Every time Deontay Wilder have a show, that's what y'all gonna see. Y'all gonna come and get y'all money, baby. Word, knockouts, man.
In this segment, we'll focus more on the rights and wrongs he does in the ring. Starting off with the things he does right, his obvious power is a good place to start.
Cut by Wilder. Wilder's doing some good work. Oh, that stiff right hand drops! Foot on the spot!
As heavily criticized as Wilder is, even his biggest doubters hold their hands up when it comes to his power. Granted, it looks sloppy a lot of the time, but there's a method to the madness. Wilder is good at using his lead hand to distract, block, and even hold his opponents in the position he wants them to be in as he throws the big right hand. Of course, there is tons of power being generated naturally, but look at the way he follows through the power shots. It's like he wants to punch right through them. And if you switch off for even a split second, it's good night.
The game plan, he should definitely...
Wilder's defense is his biggest downfall, but it's very rarely a problem for him while he's on the back foot. He has both incredible athleticism and reflexes, which allow him to evade shots in not the most technical way, but enough for him to rarely get hit clean.
To maintain his position, and he's going to start to look for counters, and he's getting more comfortable at close range.
Spielkopf.
This is where it becomes interesting on Ortiz's part. He isn't really a front foot fighter. He prefers to wait and counterpunch. When he does venture on the front foot, he often makes small mistakes, such as waiting too long to throw a shot or throwing something a bit wide. And as we have seen on many occasions, Deontay throws a fast counterpunch in these situations.
That was a devastating punch, and it was all technique, it was timing. It don't get no better than that punch right there.
When the fight takes place in the center of the ring, I think we'll see Wilder getting the best of Ortiz for the large majority of the time, throwing jabs, leaning, moving, and trying to pivot around Ortiz because, to be honest, Ortiz doesn't have the fastest reaction time in these situations. My biggest fear for Wilder is getting too overeager. Although it has worked for him in the past, this will be the first time he will be facing a grade A counterpuncher in Ortiz.
Redondo stays up after bouncing off the ropes.
Wilder doesn't have great punch resistance. I'm not saying he has a bad chin, but he often buckles his legs and flails his arms at the worst times. Look at the difference between how Wilder takes a big shot in comparison to Anthony Joshua.
Вообще не боится. Оба! Болтанул! Deontay, Marina, шанс у Эрика. Тут промахнул.
Boxing Defense 101. Put your hands up and your chin down. With all that being said, I still think Wilder will have lots of success throwing shots directly through Ortiz's guard. We've seen him do it time and again. Unless you're feinting and giving Wilder something to think about, he'll punch right through you. Just remember, I only do these Tale of the Tapes for 50-50 fights, so it's never going to be easy for me to pick a winner, and today I think I'll sit on the fence. Can Wilder keep defying the fundamentals of boxing with his power and athleticism? Can Luis Ortiz finally step up for the most technically brilliant boxing nation of all time and become a legitimate professional champion? All the questions will be answered in a few days' time. In the meantime, I'd love to know your opinions down below. As we said earlier, we're giving you guys at home a chance to be a part of Boxing Legends TV moving forward. If you're a graphic designer, a keen artist, or just fancy giving it a go, we are looking to rebrand our logo and YouTube background. We want to keep the name Boxing Legends TV, so it's important to make it visible on the YouTube header. Whether you want to include boxers, text, links to my social media, it's all up to you. But we'll be paying $50 for the one we feel is best fitted to our brand. We could have gotten it done elsewhere for much less, but I thought it'd be a cool little project for any of you designers out there. I personally like the black and green theme, but I'm open to different color schemes as well. Once you've finished with your design, send them over to boxinglegendsart@yahoo.com. That's boxinglegendsart@yahoo.com, or shoot me a message on Twitter. Be sure to get the dimensions right, which can be figured out by a quick Google search. If we really like your design, we might even offer you an opportunity to do some other paid work for us like thumbnails and a top secret project we're currently working on. You have 1 week from this video's release to get your edits in. Until next time, fight fans, this is Boxing Legends TV, signing off.